This is No One Teaches You This, a podcast for tech leaders who've had to figure things out as they go. No one's taught them what to do, but hopefully them sharing their story will help you along the way.
I wish someone had told me that they felt the same way as well. It's not something I felt I could share with people either.
We didn't prep for this.
That was an interesting side to it.
The bird and thing's really interesting.
And the lack of self-awareness is often the thing that causes a lot of that feeling of loneliness.
Joining me today is Matt Asbury, who is a head of engineering, soon to be joining Lendable. Matt's chosen subject was loneliness, which is, I think, particularly prevalent within leadership roles. Matt goes into detail about how he's felt lonely in his past, what were the symptoms of that, how he's got better at managing and noticing that and putting strategies in place. And hopefully hearing his story will help you. Thanks a lot. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Very welcome. Good to be here.
No, fantastic. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your chosen subject and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm engineering leader. I'm moving between roles at the moment. Have been recently left head of engineering at Gymshark, moving into a very similar position at a company called Lendable based in London. Been an engineering leader for about 10 years. Have a background in software development as well. So I come through the cycle of learning how to code way back when, works agency side, client side, a little bit both. Worked my way up into management and have the sort of like the experience in the battle scars to go with it as well. So lots of different things.
Great, fantastic. And what's your subject you want to be talking about today?
It's actually loneliness in leadership, really, and how that can sort of maybe catch you unawares a little bit, or something that I know that most leaders have experienced at some point as they sort of like move up through the ranks, really, and move into sort of like different seniority of roles, and specifically like the more senior you become, the more prominent that seems to be as we go through.
That's interesting. Okay. So when was the first time you experienced or felt like you saw the signs of loneliness in your role?
The first time I moved into my first head of engineering role, I left engineer. I was an engineering manager at a company called Asbury University. That was my first sort of experience of management. And it's a very different challenge at that point to what I experienced a little bit later. At that point, it was very much, do I leave code or don't I leave code? Is this something I want to be involved in? Or do I want to sort of like really double down on sort of like that leadership and management and things like that? And once you kind of make that decision that you do want to step away from the code, you enjoy this, you get a lot of value out of this, and you can see the value that you add. The different questions that come up at that point, then they do a little bit later. It's like, so how do I do this well? How do I do coaching? How do I support a team? How do I grow a team? And how do I figure all that out? And so it's more of a hands-on learning experience at that point. And there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of people around who can sort of like guide you through that. At the time, and my experience with other people at the time, my manager was very supportive of me moving into that role. He was aware that I'd never done this before, and so was helping guide me through like, this is how to hold a good one-to-one, and there's books everywhere about like that sort of thing, and you can really double down on understanding your learning at that point. And that's what I did for a very long time. So I spent a little bit of time at Asbury University and progressed and sort of learned how to do that, I think, well. I had an opportunity to join 383 Project, agency based in Birmingham, as their head of engineering. And you go into that sort of environment and immediately, and I don't know whether this was a self-perception thing or the expectation of the organisation, or maybe a little bit of both, where it shifts from you trying to figure out how to lead a team to potentially leading multiple teams and feeling like you should have all the answers all the time. And then you've got the teams that you're looking after, looking up to you to say like, so what are we doing? What direction are we going? What's the vision? What's the strategy? And you've got to kind of work that out. But you've also got the level above you who's looking down to you saying like, what's the strategy? What's the vision? How are you going after this? And you kind of sandwich in the middle at that sort of like mid sort of seniority, where you feel like you've got the pressure from both sides, and it's a very different environment. And at that point, you kind of look around. Specifically in that role, I was the only head of engineering in that space. There were other heads of, but I felt like I'm the one that needs to have the answers, because the head of delivery is also looking at me, and I've got the head of customer services looking at me as well, because they are coming to me, friends, because I've got clients or projects and things like that. And all of a sudden I'm like, so who do I turn to if I've got things to think about. And that was the first real time that I'd ever felt that. But it sort of continued as I sort of moved on from 383 into Gymshark as well. And I'm moving into a role where the organisation are bringing me in to solve problems or fill a role. And so they're also looking at me in the same sort of vein, really. And I'm like, is this a common thing? And just talking to other heads up in those positions, I find that it is. And it's an interesting one as soon as you hit that sort of mid-level, whatever the job title is. It was head of for me, but that mid-level where you've got managers below you, but also people looking down to you to lead teams. It's like it feels like a very lonely place, and it's something that, as I said, a lot of people I've spoken to have experienced before, and something that I think is quite prominent in the industry, but no one really talks about.
Mm. So that feeling of loneliness then, like how did that manifest itself? Did that feed into either the work or even family and home life, like taking that feeling home with you? Like what were the sort of symptoms that you saw off the back?
The it's interesting because I think it affects different people in different ways. For me personally, there was I put a lot of pressure on myself in order to figure stuff out. I'm a very reflective person, and I try to sit on things quite a lot and understand and dig deep into them and reflect, and then come up with the best solution based on sort of like logical outcomes and things like that. To your point, that can lead into taking that sort of thing home. You spend long hours, you try to figure things out, you turn up to work early, you go home late, you sit at home 9, 10 o'clock at night, still working, etc., because you're doing a lot of things during the day in the team at Francis and you're doing those sorts of things. And so you take the figuring stuff out home with you, and
Mm,
there's a lot of times where I've been online and things like that late into the night because I'm the one that has to have the answers. Otherwise, how I feel, and it sort of becomes a bit of a cycle then where you're putting the pressure on yourself. You're seeing the results, and you're like, well, this is the way it should be. This is what I need to keep doing, and it's very much as I said, I think you put on yourself a self thing where the pressure increases because of the outcomes that you're trying to see, and you want to keep seeing those outcomes, the positive things that you're trying to see, or where things don't go wrong, don't go right. You'll often double down in those, and you're like, actually, what went wrong there? How could I do that better? And as I say, going back to that loneliness thing, it's not something I felt I could share with people either. I can
that's
share with like
interesting.
family and things like that. It's like, well, this is just work. This is this is how we do things now. This is my job. This is my role. So it's not something I could share with them really, but I didn't feel I could share it with people at work either. I didn't feel I could share it with the people I supported. I didn't feel like I could share it with my line manager, and I didn't feel like I could share it with my peers either. Not until much, much later when I sort of reflected on it a little bit. Because again, my perception was I'm the one that needs to have all the answers. And if I'm going to these people, it's almost like an admission that I don't have all the answers.
Mm,
And I don't want the people I'm supporting to lose confidence in me. I don't want my managers to think less of me in those situations. And I certainly don't want my peers to feel that I'm not capable of being there for the team and them and supporting them in the way that I need to. And so you just sort of like bottle it up and hold it in and just sort of like muddle your way through and hope for the best, really.
yeah. So that was interesting there that you said. I think most people can understand with I don't want to share it with my team because I've got to know all the answers, right?
Mm.
But it's funny you sort of took that home and said, "Oh, I don't feel like I could share it at home either."
Yeah.
What what made you think that?
Um, Again, it might just be a personal thing, but I see it's a weird thing. I see my sort of role within my family in a very similar way to the way that I feel with my teams. I'm there for support and to look after them and make sure that everything's right. I need to have the answers for my family as well.
Mm,
My children need to look up to me and say like, "Dad's got this," etc. Everything's going to be all right. I want to be there for my wife and make sure that she knows that we're going to pay the bills next month and there's no problems there, there's no struggles there. And it's just the way that I perceive the world, maybe. And as I said, it might be a very personal thing, but because I see myself as the person who needs to have the answers and the provider, whether that's for the teams or the family, it manifests itself in the same way where it's okay, I need to hold on to this and make sure that I present the picture of having all the answers. I present the view that I've got this. and not make anyone else feel that there's something wrong there. So
Yeah. So you didn't want to burden them.
that's it.
I
That's the
guess.
word.
That's really interesting. We didn't prep for this.
We didn't prep for this. That was an interesting side
But
step.
the burden thing's really interesting. Do you think that is a masculinity thing there?
Ooh, that's a good question. Potentially. I certainly see, even now in the workplace, um, I, I see a lot more people in senior positions who are men will act and behave in a certain way that maybe women don't traditionally, conforming more to those stereotypes.
Yeah.
I think they will often joke about things in a way, about the workload and all these sorts of things, but it's always done in a very jokey, jovial way. I don't ever recall experiencing that with some of my female colleagues where we're joking about the work in that sort of way. It's more of a serious conversation going like, these projects are ridiculous. This stuff that we're trying to go after is a little bit crazy. What are we going to do about this? How do you feel about X, Y, and Z in these situations in the teams? I don't often recall times when I've had those conversations with guys. It's probably something to explore a bit more and understand.
I think it goes back to exactly what you were saying before. Like you feel like you've got to have all the answers and you don't want to burden people.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of what that is. Cool. So you've described the fact that you felt a little bit trapped, I guess, because you've got pressure coming from above. You've got to have all the answers for above, but also you've got to look after your team and tell them all the answers. So you're sort of in this pressure cooker, and that's where the loneliness can kick in. And you felt like you couldn't ask for help at that point.
Yeah.
Was that because of feeling of perhaps you might feel weak because of that? What was the reason why you didn't go and ask somebody for help at that point when you first noticed it?
It was probably a perception of weakness in the role and a capability thing more than anything else. As I said, you step into that role and there's an expectation that you're going to understand what you're doing, why you're there, what you're trying to achieve, have the right approach in order to help the organisation achieve its goals through the teams and all that sort of stuff. And so there is an element of you, again, having to have all the answers, but also being able to figure those things out, either on your own or lean on different resources and things like that. At no point did I feel I could lean on another person for that, though, because as a peer, we each have our own specialisms. And just as I would expect the head of delivery or the head of quality to have the answers in their space, and we would work together in order to achieve what we want to achieve, I wouldn't want to go to them with technical problems or technical team problems, which I should be the one solving. And so there was that element there, which is like, this isn't for you to figure out, this is for me to figure out, and I need to take that on. Back to the burden thing, I need to take that on and figure out how to come up with the solutions for this. Whether it's working through the problem with on my own and work through the problem, just sit with it, whether it's trying different things and seeing what works and what doesn't. But it's definitely on me as a role thing to go and figure how that works and not give you the responsibility, because you've got your own things to think about. You've got your own teams, you've got your own problems, you've got your own projects, etc. You've got your own pressures to figure out as well. My perception transpired onto them. It's like you've got your own things to figure out. Weirdly though, which is interesting, you were just talking about it then, if they were to come to me, which we'll probably get onto a little bit later, if they were to come to me at any point and ask me for help, I would have jumped at the chance to help them, just talk things through with them, which is an interesting thing once you look back on those sorts of things.
That's interesting. Would you, if somebody in your team came and asked you for help, would you value that? You go, okay, yeah, I'm glad you come and ask me for help.
Yeah, absolutely. Even now, so during my time like working with teams, if someone's to come with to help, the first thing I would do would be, okay, we'll park everything. Let's focus on what the issue is. How can I help you? I might not have the answers for you because it might be a very specific problem, But I can definitely talk to you about that and help you understand the space a little bit more, the context, maybe layer some things on, maybe bring something from my own experience which might help and support or give them guidance about where to go next. So definitely more than happy to help people out in those ways. And it's interesting. It's almost a little bit of a confidence boost that people come to you for help as well. And even after leaving organisations, even sort of the last couple of weeks or so, I've had people from my network reach out to me and say, like, can I ask you a question about something I'm struggling with, something, which is always quite nice to hear that people value your time and opinion as well. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. Do you think if you asked somebody who was above you, let's say, in the chain for help, would
Yeah.
they feel the same way you felt then?
Back then, no. Back then, no. It's taken me a long time to figure it out. A lot of self-reflection, a lot of challenging times personally, a lot of going through difficult situations and struggling through those to realize that the people that you could reach out to, the people in senior leadership positions, have probably been there and done it as well, just as I'm able to sort of lean on other people and help support them through them lean on me and me support them through that. The people that I would look to lean on have probably been through similar challenges themselves and felt the same way. And I think that was quite a big turning point for me to come out the other side of that sort of loneliness aspect. It was like they've been there, they've done that. They probably feel that way right now because now they're in an even more senior position and they've probably got less peers to lean on and they expect to have more answers because they've got the entire organisation or entire function looking at them there. And so to lean into them and say like, I'm struggling with this. What would you say? Even if it's just a conversation at that point, more than happy to help you out. But that takes a long time. Well, it took me a long time to get there, certainly.
I can massively relate to that. I think there is power in saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Absolutely.
And asking somebody for help for that because I think it builds trust more than anything because you know this person isn't, excuse my French, bullshit.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like, yeah. And a lot of what you were saying there before about the pressure piece, it almost feels like you've built this up in your mind mostly. So there's a lot of self pressure rather than external pressure
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
actually true pressure. Is that what you've?
Yeah, definitely. Don't get me wrong. In those roles, there is pressure. There is always going to be expectation from the organisation that we need to get things done. We need to deliver these projects. We need to build these teams. That pressure is real, and it should be because that's the role that you're there to fill. You don't get paid a generous salary because they want you to turn up, do your 9 to 5, and then go on your merry way and or rainbows and unicorns. That's not the reality of the world that you live in that. You've got things to deliver. You've got websites and mobile apps and back-end systems that need to keep running 24/7, or they go down, you bet your ass. Someone's got to be there to actually go and fix those things, right? The pressure's real. But there's also that added pressure that you put on yourself, which is very much a mental state more than anything else.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you sort of just need to be aware of. Understanding whether this pressure is this is a justified pressure because of the role I'm in and the expectations that are being placed on me, and I need to work out how to deal with that, or this is an unexpected pressure I'm putting on myself, and I need to recognize that and deal with that in a better way.
Yeah, okay. That's hard, isn't it, to separate that sometimes
100%.
and understand that. You've got to really know your own mind to do it. What I'm interested in as well, I think that I've definitely seen this in my conversations with people, is that loneliness is spreading quite a lot at the moment. And, I'm wondering if that is down to the way the world has changed. We're doing so much more remotely nowadays.
Yeah.
And do you think that has amplified things, or do you think that loneliness has always been there in that leadership position?
I think it's always been there. As I said, there's the perception of you need to have the answers, which manifests itself as that loneliness piece. I think rolling back the years a little bit to COVID, I think that was the first time that people collectively understood what it meant to be with other people. I don't think we really appreciated that until we kind of went through that whole scenario. And once you sort of hit the work environment again, a lot of organisations like we're now 100% remote because we know we can do it. People sort of like, I miss I miss talking to other people. I miss meeting with other people. You mentioned trust earlier, which is a really interesting thing. It's really hard to trust people over a screen because you miss out on so many social cues like body language and tone and all these sorts of things, or even just the not professional conversations that you have. I don't mean like things that are not
Yeah,
suitable for
like
the
the
work
water
environment.
cooler
Look,
stuff.
the water cooler stuff, you just ask
Yeah.
someone how their day is, which, unless there's an organised meeting around a video call, it's really hard to have. And so you miss all of those, like, how's the family? Like, what's going on with you? And you catch up with people on the things that they've said previously, and you notice changes in the way that they answer, maybe. And you just, if you're supporting someone who's going through a difficult time, you can see the way that they hold themselves or the way that they talk, and you can pick up on those. And you can really see socially how important that is to have those in-person moments, not just from how do we get the work done better as a team, but how do we have better relationships with the team, which build on that
Mm.
work environment, etc. You build the trust, you build quality relationships by being in person with people, and that's really hard to do over screens. And I think a lot of organisations who tried that, let's go 100% remote, see how it works. A lot of them have said, do you know what? We're probably going to mandate 2 or 3 days in the office because it drives better outcomes from the organisation. Maybe not understanding why. Maybe thought like, got this big building, we want to get people in, and we might as well pay for it, etc. And we're getting better outcomes from people. But I think it's very much that trust and relationship that people are able to build, and the way that people can get things done better by just sitting next to each other on a desk and just leaning over each other's laptops and can you just help me with this, etc.
Mm.
Those things can't happen over remote today. So I think very much so it builds on that loneliness aspect where you're struggling with those problems, whether it's as an engineer, as a leader, or whatever that might be.
Yeah. I don't want us to turn into a remote working thing
No.
because it's been done to death. But I am interested from a leadership perspective. If you are managing a completely remote team, and
Mm-hmm.
like you were saying, you've got all the pressures to know the answers for the people above you. So let's say your boss comes to you and goes,
Yeah.
Matt, where are we at with X, Y, and Z? What's Dave doing today? Sort of situation.
Yeah.
Does it feel like you're chasing shadows a little bit? And like to feel like you're in control of that situation, or actually with the text there now, you can handle that.
The tech is there, but I think you have to be more purposeful with the tech and put in the systems and processes to make sure that you understand what's happening, whilst also continuing to give people the autonomy that they need. I think there's a model that I think I stole it from Simon Sinek. It was one of inspected trust, and it's one that has helped me quite a lot, particularly with people who are remote or remote teams, is to give people the autonomy to go and do their jobs, but putting the systems in place to make sure or understand whether what is being said to you is the reality of the situation. Because remotely, especially, it's very easy for people to disguise, hide, not that they are not capable of doing, but maybe struggling. And
Mm,
so if you have the process and the systems, whether it's through measures or metrics or whatever it might be, you have those there to go like, I hear what you're saying, but what I'm seeing in terms of the things that we're looking at in terms of the team or the project, etc., those things don't ring true. So can we just have a conversation about those things? And
yeah,
that's really important, especially with remote teams.
cool. Okay, great. What I'm interested in is that so you've got this feeling of loneliness. Let's say somebody's out there right now, they're listening to this and they're going, "Yeah, I'm feeling lonely."
Mm.
You know, who can they go to? You're saying that there's very little. You can't go below. You can't go above. Who are
Yeah.
they going to for help?
I You mentioned trust earlier, and I think that's the key thing. The reality is that the people around you, the other leaders in your space, are probably feeling exactly the same way. And if you feel that you're in a situation, if one of them came to you and said, can you help me with X, Y, Z? The situation is probably you could do exactly the same to them. You're in that environment where you can have those same conversations with them. Just be open and honest and show a bit of vulnerability. And not only will you probably get the support that you're looking for and feel a little bit less lonely, but you probably get answers a lot quicker than you would by sitting and reflecting and trying to work things out on your own.
Yeah.
Because reality is that these people are part of your team. okay, your team is maybe the one that you're looking after, but the team around you are all trying to achieve the same thing, and they want to help you get there in the most effective and efficient way, just as they're trying to achieve what they're trying to achieve as well. It's probably the same thing. So
Yeah.
being open and honest, be a little bit vulnerable, just having conversations and maybe opening up just a little bit about how you're feeling and where you're struggling, even if it's just something minor, a little problem, a little project, a question about like how have you dealt with this situation in the past or have you experienced that, it just starts to open those doors up a little bit to go deeper on those conversations and be a little bit more vulnerable with each other and share problems, which is really, really critical to building the trust and the professional relationships, but also erasing that loneliness a little bit as well,
Yeah.
realizing the loneliness is probably in your head reality.
Yeah. You spoke about that in the prep. I think that's a really interesting line. The loneliness is in your head.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
It's very much a self-imposed thing because you're putting all the pressure on yourself to have all those answers, to be the one to come up with the solutions all the time. It's very easy to go into a cycle of not trying to burden other people and take it all on yourself and have all those answers. And then all of a sudden you feel very isolated because you're the one that's carrying all the context. You're the one that's carrying all the pressure. You're the one that has all the ideas about how to solve those. You're the one that's trying to put those things into place. And probably not giving the right people the right level of context, which manifests more as, oh, if that doesn't work, then I can't admit that I've got this wrong now. I'm going to take this back and only figure it out again. And that cycle just continues until you just hold your hands up and say, do you know what? I can't do this alone. I need other people. And I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. Because you can spiral, can't it?
Absolutely.
That's the worrying thing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, we spoke a little bit about mentors in prep for this as
Yeah.
well, and obviously mentors is a word that I think is thrown around a lot. And go, I'll
Hmm.
go find a mentor. Mentors can help, but there's so many people I speak to who go, where the hell do I start in finding a mentor? What makes a good mentor? Should they be in my industry? Should they be outside my
Yeah.
industry? What does that look like?
Hmm.
Tell us from your experience.
I've had some really good mentors in my time, and the where I've found them has been quite varied. A lot of them have been through people I've worked with, people I look up to,
Mm.
people I feel are really strong in a specific area. I had a really good relationship with a guy called Glenn, who I used to work with at 383. Fantastic coach, and it was one area that I was really interested in growing stronger at. Glenn will readily admit that he's not a technical person. He was
Mm.
not in the engineering space at 383, but he was really, really great to have a conversation with and just ask those questions just to help you unlock the answers that you have inside in your head. And it might be not the answers to technical questions. It might be team issues, previous experience at different organisations. So it's understanding a little bit about, first of all, what are you looking for from a mentor, and then start an understanding of where you could start to look for those. And it might be somebody already in your network. A lot of people will have worked at several jobs, and that's the first place I would recommend starting. Is like, is there someone that I've worked with previously or currently? I could probably just ask though for an informal conversation. You don't have to
Mm.
talk to them. It's like, will you be my mentor, please? That's not sort of like the
Yeah.
approach that you want to take. It's like,
Yeah.
I got some thoughts, I got some ideas, or I got some issues, and you're really good at this, or I've seen you do this really well in the past. Can we have a cup of coffee and just chat for half an hour about how you might approach this, or help me understand it a little bit better? And that's I think that's the key to unlocking that sort of thing. Really, people put, to your point, a lot of emphasis on this mentoring being like a very formal thing, and it doesn't have to be. It can just be, I jump on a video call or a phone call or for a coffee with someone. Do you want to chat about how you're doing, how you perceive the world, and how that differs from mine, but how that might help me to progress in my own career, or help me unlock my own problems. So I definitely recommend looking at your own network, people
Yeah.
you've worked with, people you look up to. If that's a challenge for you, there are many networking opportunities that are in the industry wherever you are in the country right now. There's conferences everywhere where you can just start to go along and talk to people, which is, as a British person, is a very scary thing,
Yeah.
right? People
Yeah.
don't like to talk to other people,
Yeah. It's very true.
but putting yourself out there and just like having a 2 minute conversation with someone saying like where you're from, how you doing, etc. The speakers on the stage are very experienced in what they're talking about, and
Yeah.
maybe just grabbing them, just like I really admired what you spoke about up there, or things like that, or even it's just conferences or a bit more informal networking events. Just going along to those and just chatting to a few people and showing up to those a little bit more regularly. Those sort of natural, as we talked about, those natural conversations you have in person, the trust, the relationships, they naturally grow, and you can start to understand where maybe not even not only where you can find people to lean on, but where other people can lean on you. And
Yeah.
maybe you become a little bit of a mentor for different people as well because you've got experience of the struggles that they're going through. It might be a two-way thing that you're going through. It's not an official mentoring. It's like it's a friend that needs a little bit of help that you can help, or you're the friend that might need them a little bit, and it grows from there. Really.
I think that is massive.
Mm-hmm.
I speak from my own experience here, and it's slightly different because obviously recruitment's not the same. But I've got a little group of local recruitment founders that we'll
Yeah.
meet up with once a month, and we meet up and have a coffee in person. We moan about some stuff,
Yeah.
we help each other with some other stuff. But you're absolutely right. One, I verbalize it, and actually, what you'll find is once you verbalize something, you know the answers.
Yeah.
It's just getting it out, and you go, "Oh yeah, of course that makes sense." And the second is, like you said, you start helping other people,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start to that loneliness goes away because you feel like I'm adding value. I am good at what I do,
Yeah.
and I think that's where loneliness can lead to. Sometimes
Yeah.
it could
hundred
be like
percent.
I'm lonely, and then you start to get these self doubts going in. Am I actually good at this? Am
Yeah.
I good at my
Absolutely.
job? Like the brain is wired to feed you that negativity.
It is.
Um, it holds on to that more than the positive.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that that whole verbalizing it is such a powerful thing to get out of that state. Just speaking to someone about it to reverse some of that stuff. To your point, it's like, am I good at this? Is a question that everyone has probably asked themselves
Mm,
many times over the years. But talking to someone else about it, even having that conversation, and you can see their responses. It's probably pretty clear that you know what you're talking about because they're responding to you in a positive way, whether it's through support or understanding. It's clear that you know what you're talking about. And even those little bits start to go, okay, so if that's not the issue, maybe I'm overthinking this, and you can start to reverse out of that cycle and
yeah,
just get into a better, positive mental state.
100%, 100%. We spoke a little bit in prep about self awareness
Yeah.
and how self awareness can be linked to loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
What part does self awareness have to play when it comes to that feeling of loneliness?
Massive. As I said earlier, it's like it's once you the self awareness, the lack of self awareness is often the thing that causes a lot of that feeling of loneliness. You may be aware of how you feel, but you may not be you're clearly not aware of why you feel that way. And
Mm,
as I said, it's the pressure you put on yourself, the perception that you have of your job, your role, the organization, the perception other people have of you. It's a very self-involved thing, and unless you can sit there and reflect on that, which will take time, which will take effort to understand, like, is this something that is justified, or is this something I'm doing to myself? Am I closing people off and that's causing the loneliness? That's a really challenging thing to do. And it's not something that people will solve overnight. It took me a long time to be able to have those reflective states where I've got things wrong, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or the amount of hours that I'm putting in is probably excessive to go, I can't carry on like this. Why am I feeling like this? And really sitting there and thinking about all those sort of situations and things you've been through in the past. Over time, you start to recognize patterns.
mm,
And that's sort of like the start of that self awareness piece. Like, I've been here before, I've felt like this before. And I realized that this was the cause of that. Before it goes any further, let's pause, let's have a little bit of self reflection, and let's understand what the real situation is. Maybe leaning on other people, maybe asking questions, maybe reaching out to a friend or a mentor and just going on, can we just have a conversation about this? Is the reality of the situation? All those sorts of things. And over time, you can build that self awareness only through real purposeful self reflection, and really opening up and being vulnerable with other people. It takes a very long time. It's certainly not something I was able to do overnight.
Yeah. You might not know the answer to this question, but how do you get better at that? And what are some of the things that you've put in place now where you can spot those early signs? Are there certain things that you do when you spot those early signs now?
I tend to write a lot of things down. Historically I've always written things down, and I publish blogs and wrote on social media and all those sorts of things. And at the time it was a way of self promotion more than anything else. I wanted to get my name in the industry,
Yeah.
and I wanted to demonstrate my capability and skill set and all those sorts of things. I stopped at a certain point. And I never remember the reason I stopped, but I stopped at a certain point doing those sorts of things. And that was one of the times that a lot of that self doubt and loneliness started to creep in. And it was only maybe a couple of years later, as I was going through these struggles and feeling like the pressures of everything, really, that I started to write things down again, not for other people to read, but just to get things out of my own mind. You said about verbalize with other people. It was almost verbalizing to myself, and like, I'm just going to write this down, like bullet points, what's all the problems, what am I seeing? And it might be freehand, it might be bullet points, whatever that needs to be. But the act of just writing things down and getting things out of my head was so powerful for me to go like, oh, okay, I can see it on paper now, or it doesn't exist in my brain now because it's all down there. And that was one of the triggers for me to say like, oh, that's a real powerful thing for me to be able to start recognizing patterns, etc. And that was one of the things that I've recommended to a couple of people as well. And they've found it very powerful for them in terms of getting things off their chest and off their shoulders and down onto something else. It's almost like speaking to your future self in a way, or speaking to the book or the
100%.
Apple Notes, etc., and all that, just getting it off. I mean, we could get into AI as well. Maybe ChatGPT is like that next space for people just to get things down and get things out, and have ChatGPT go like, they're probably feeling this way because of X, Y, Z, because that's sort of a natural step. But I didn't even need at that time. It was just the fact that writing things down was such a powerful tool for me that it helped me build not only that self awareness, but allow me to reflect and allow me to recognize when I'm sort of getting into those patterns again and stop them before they go too far.
Mm. I think putting something down on paper, it helps you to realize that it's almost never as bad as you think it is.
Absolutely.
It's there on paper. It's never as bad as you think it is. Again, your brain will make it into something like that. I do a reflection document every Friday.
Yeah.
Where it goes through what was good this week, what was bad this week, what have I learned, and I always feel great after I fill that document out. So
And do you go through like a structure, or do you just like freehand? Or?
Structure, yeah.
Structure.
I've got the same headings every week.
Yeah.
And it, massively. I've done that since I started 106, and
Yeah.
it's been really cool. And what's really cool about it is you've got a backlog where you can go back to again. You go, when was I feeling like this before? Great. Oh yeah, it wasn't actually that bad.
Exactly. And it's really great for that as well, because you can look back 6-12 months if you decide to keep these documents, go like, wow, look how far I've come.
Yeah.
Look at what I felt then, and look at where we are now. And that really helps as well.
Yeah. Another thing, again, not really a question, but I think a lot of the loneliness or the overwhelmingness that can lead to loneliness comes from my my experience, comes from being too much in the day to day. Obviously, sometimes you have to be in the day to day, but if you're stuck in that day to day for weeks and months, and you've got no picture of the long term, you feel like where you're going, you start questioning yourself again. You probably fighting fires. That's where you just feel like you're not moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where I've seen it quite a lot.
And that's where having those relationships with both your peers and probably your line manager can help as well, because they'll often refocus you on the right things. To your point, it's easy to get drawn into the day to day. It's easy to get drawn into the minutiae of the problems the team or the individuals are dealing with, and they are important. But they might not be the most important thing that you, as a leader, might need to be focused on.
Yeah.
And really opening up and building that trust, and having those conversations with the key people that you can lean on, peers, line managers, etc. And then go like, I see these, but I really need you to be here and here and here. These are not important. Focus here. and that's where you'll have the most impact.
Yeah, massively. We can carry on talking about this for ages, but I just want to end on one question on the loneliness piece. So, what do you wish somebody had told you the first time you started feeling the loneliness in your leadership position?
I wish someone had told me that they felt the same way as well. I wish I'd had the relationships in place to have those conversations with people to go like, it's normal. It's absolutely normal. And there is a way to deal with it by talking to other people. I think that would have unlocked a lot of learning very early on that it took me a long time to get to.
Good.
I'm glad I'm there now, but it took me a long time to get there.
Great. Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. So we've got 10 quickfire questions that we ask everybody who comes on. You're the first person, so there we go.
Yeah.
You're the first, see how these go. So, first thing that pops into your brain, don't think about it too much. We'll start with a nice, easy one. Most overrated leadership advice.
Most overrated leadership advice. What? Can I come back to that one?
Of course, yeah. AI, for or against?
For.
Inevitable. One Apple piece of tech you can live without.
Apple Watch.
Apple Watch. Cool. One book or audiobook or podcast you'd recommend to somebody.
Extreme ownership.
No, we spoke about that.
Extreme ownership.
That's
yeah.
a podcast in itself.
That
Actually,
is.
to talk about. If you weren't in tech, what would you do?
I would love to either been a pilot or a chef.
Pilot. Wow.
Two very different tracks.
Very good. You cook at home?
Love cooking.
Great.
Yeah.
Morning routine.
Get up, get ready, pint of milk, banana, creatine, help my wife get the kids ready for school, and then just crack on.
Pint of milk. Wow.
Pint of milk.
I've not heard that before.
No?
That's great.
Get the protein.
Yeah, why not? One thing you wish you had done sooner as a leader.
Be more vulnerable. Absolutely be more vulnerable. Open up to people. Seek each other for feedback. Get more input earlier.
Favourite food?
Curry.
Nice. True Brummie. What takes up most of your time in the workplace?
Context switching.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one. Context switching is challenging, I think, for a lot of leaders.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's a big one.
Mm. If your team had to describe you in no more than 3 words, what would they say? Bearing in mind you've not met your team.
Let's go on pretty similar.
Yeah.
I'd say like reliable, trustworthy, a grown up, which is, I don't know whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. They called me that the other day. You're a grown up. I'm like, okay.
Did you feel like a grown up?
No.
And come back to the first one. Most overrated leadership advice. That's a tough question.
Most overrated leadership advice.
It's negative as well, isn't it?
It is. I'm not sure about that one.
Nothing springs to mind?
Nothing springs to mind in terms of overrated leadership advice.
Sure.
I tried to take. I don't know. It's relevant. I try to take every piece of advice I get, every piece of experience I have with different leaders, and learn something from it.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether that turns out and pans out to be something positive or negative, it's something I've learned from.
Mm.
So it's not. I don't take something and dismiss it out of hand. It's like, okay, I've seen this and I might understand why you're doing that, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Really
for coming
enjoyed
on.
it.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you a lot.